大家好啊！嚟到世界香港論壇第3日，今日咧我哋咧有幾位唔同嘅嘉賓，咁有高志活、龔少霞、Ben Rogers、林榮基、Mark Clifford 同埋許智峰。咁我哋咧就會用英文同埋咧廣東話一齊咧去傾下中共港共震懾，香港加速沉淪。英文咧就係 With Intimidation Tactics, Hong Kong sinks further. So welcome everyone. And Ted Hui is also joining in 10 to 15 minutes. This forum will be, we'll compress it into 1 hour. So everyone, we have 2 rounds of 4 minutes to talk about the intimidation tactics that CCP has used. And then I guess everyone has his own experience of sorts. Without further ado, I know Benedict actually just arrived to Asia, just had some hiking thing, and he is energized. Maybe we will start with Ben, the first 4 minutes. How you got intimidated personally or the organization that you represent, your first 4 minutes, please.
Well, thank you very much, Ed. It's a real privilege to join you. I'm joining you from Taiwan. I actually haven't been hiking because, as you may know, there's a typhoon sort of around, but I have been out and about in and around Taipei. But I'm really glad to be with you on this important event. And I want to start by saying that anything that I share about my own personal experiences and Hong Kong Watch's experiences pales into insignificance compared with what people in Hong Kong are enduring, of course, and especially I think of our mutual friend Jimmy Lai, and I've written a piece about Jimmy that I think is on display at this forum, and it also pales into insignificance compared with the arrest warrants and bounties that have been issued against 8 Hong Kongers and the questioning of their families. But nevertheless, in 2017, so this was way before the 2019 protests, way before the national security law, I was denied entry to Hong Kong. I was going on a private visit just to meet people privately, and I believe I was the first Westerner, or certainly one of the very first, to be denied entry on the orders of Beijing. About a year later, in 2018, when I was speaking at a panel at the UK Conservative Party conference alongside 3 of the best-known pro-democracy activists of different generations from Hong Kong, Martin Lee, Benny Tai, and Nathan Law, a Chinese state media reporter started screaming abuse at me. Never been screamed at in that way before. And she ended up assaulting one of our volunteers who asked her to sit down. Since 2017, I've lost count now, but 20, 30, probably 40 anonymous letters at my home address. Some of those letters went to my neighbors in the street where I live in London, which was a new way of getting to know my neighbors. And some letters also went to my mother, telling my mother to tell her son to shut up. Luckily, my mother is firstly very supportive of what I do, and secondly has a good sense of humor. And she told me she'd given up many years ago trying to tell me to shut up. But nevertheless, the fact that they'd found her address and were targeting my mother was disconcerting. One of the letters I received actually included a razor blade, and another included a very weird sort of coin with a picture of Mao on it. I'm not sure what that was supposed to say, but it was very strange. I've also been subjected to impersonations on email, so fake email messages going out supposedly in my name, but from a different account, not my own, to other people. And then perhaps most seriously, the last couple of examples before I close, I was in Vancouver in 2021, and I was actually in Whistler outside Vancouver, and I received an anonymous email to my real email account. And it simply said in the subject line, "See you at the Sheraton," which was the hotel I was going to be staying in Vancouver. So evidently news of my accommodation in Vancouver had got out somehow, and that was obviously a threat to me there. Since then, in 2022, Hong Kong Watch's website has been blocked in Hong Kong. And I then subsequently received 2 letters, one from the Hong Kong police force and one from the National Security Police, telling me that if I didn't cease the activities of Hong Kong Watch, then I, as the co-founder and chief executive of Hong Kong Watch, could face a very large fine and a prison sentence of, the first letter said 1 to 3 years, and the second letter said 3 years to life, which is quite a big span. And of course, like all of us, I receive a constant daily deluge of abuse on social media, on Twitter and on my public Facebook account. That I've kind of got used to. I mean, in a sense, I've got used to all of it now. But obviously, the social media stuff happens to all of us. But some of the other examples, targeting a British citizen for activities that I'm carrying out in the UK and in other countries, not in Hong Kong. It's an example of the extraterritoriality of the national security law. And as I said at the start, if I'm facing this kind of thing, we can imagine how much worse it is for Hong Kongers.
Okay, thank you, Ben. So I'm gonna make a keynote like this. So you know, like the time it's running out. If you don't mind, let's switch back to Cantonese. Also in Taiwan, we have Lim Wing-Kei. And Ben, you might visit Lim Wing-Kei during your stay here. 林生你好，
你好。
我哋講下咧中共震懾呢樣嘢。嗱，你喺大陸個監獄咧住咗好幾個月。我唔知你想唔想講下呢樣嘢咧，因為每人有2個4分鐘。交個咪俾你啊。
我大概講下係你所謂呢個主題啊，中共震懾香港。其實係震懾都唔係而家嘅事㗎啦。咁你睇翻係香港最早期發生嘅，其實就出版人啦，一個係叫做姚文田啊。咁因為出一本係想批評習近平嘅書籍。咁最後結果就被誘騙到中國大陸，咁俾佢一個罪名，就叫做走私化工品，判咗10年。咁呢個老先生我都同佢好熟嘅，咁10年佢應該就係2013年被判嘅，咁啱啱係舊年嘅年底係出翻嚟，咁應該冇咩消息話佢去咗第二度，應該就喺香港嘅，咁放咗出嚟。咁第二件事就係2014年多維雜誌個老闆同埋個編輯喺深圳被拘捕，就因為佢哋出份雜誌係相當多嘅批評習近平嘅書籍。咁就兩個，一個被判5年，一個就被判6年。咁最後咧就到2015年就銅鑼灣書店咁呢件事應該大家都記憶猶新㗎啦。咁震懾就好明顯啦因為係拉晒5個書店裏邊嘅人，咁最後就桂民海由於係聽聞係想出一本關於批評習近平嘅書，亦都係咁被判10年。咁呢一連串事件，我哋睇到其實佢震懾香港咧，就應該就唔係而家開始㗎啦。就我哋睇翻個事件咧，由2012年習近平上台，咁當時就2013年又提出嗰個七不講啦，我唔知大家仲有冇印象啦，就三權配合不講普世價值，不講人權或者民主。咁而家睇翻香港嗰個情況咧，係就正係按佢當時2013年提出嗰個治港政策或者係統治中國大陸嗰個情況係吻合嘅。咁未來我哋睇唔到所謂震懾香港，佢仲有需要啲咩行動？因為而家其實只係穩健去加強佢嗰個管治嘅香港嘅能力。咁譬如大家都見到啦甚至乎學習 粵語嘅一個網絡都被禁止啦，係嘛？咁啊都要係收檔啦。咁啊，傳媒大家都知啦，蘋果日報啦幾個編輯啦，一啲網台啦，咁我哋睇唔到佢係呢2年對香港嘅所謂管治從一個所有嘅事件，我哋睇得到往後嗰個管治會越嚟越嚴重。咁我期望嘅反而係香港人喺海外係各自所能啦，就先做好自己嘅過好自己嘅生活，然後有能力嘅就係幫其他嘅香港人。
OK，
呢個就係我對呢一次討論，希望係大家朋友能夠提出一啲新嘅睇法。
Basically, Lam and Kay talk about very briefly the experience from his friends, publishers who got jailed, receiving different jail terms, but I'm not going to elaborate further. I'm going to pass the time to Mark Griffith. Hi, how are you, Mark?
Great. Hi. Thanks, Ed. Thanks, Mr. Lam, Benedict. I am not going to talk about my personal experiences, which pale even next to Ben's, let alone people in Hong Kong. Let me talk first a little more broadly. We have to be very clear. The events of the last few months, the actions on the part of Hong Kong authorities constitute a dramatic escalation of the intimidation tactics. As Ben said, and as others know, this extraterritoriality, the attempt to extend the national security law and indeed the entire apparatus of repression abroad is what we're seeing. The bounties against the 8 Hong Kongers and the intimidation against their relatives in Hong Kong really mark a step change. I know we're going to talk about Jens will talk a little later about his experience with a pillar of shame, but this is something new. This is something that even China and has not done, mainland China has not done in the past. I think we have to take it very seriously because, today's Hong Kong, tomorrow is tomorrow's world if the CCP has its way. So this is a real challenge, but also an opportunity for activists because Hong Kong is still going on as if it's or as if it can go back to business as normal. This, I think, ill-conceived, this ironic Hello Hong Kong campaign trying to lure foreign business back. John Lee, Chief Executive John Lee's almost desperate, pathetic attempt to go to San Francisco to the APEC meeting, which the U.S. has not given a clear answer on, I think, again, is an opportunity, something that should galvanize us as activists. Things are extremely dire in Hong Kong. I don't think anyone would have imagined 3, 4, 5 years ago, or when Benedict started having that first denial back in 2017, 6 years ago now, 6 years ago next month, I believe, that things would have gotten this bad this quickly. And so I think we need to obviously work, as many of us are doing, with Uyghurs, with Tibetans, with mainland Han Chinese, lawyers and others to do what we can to resist the CCP. I feel that the tide is starting to turn, but we should be under no illusions. The CCP, and through its quislings in Hong Kong, has really escalated the intimidation tactics, trying to take them abroad. We've seen the very weak response on the part of the U.S. government to the attack on Bob Chan at the Manchester consulate when he was assaulted by the consul general. I think we're seeing other things like this, and we have to ensure that our governments, all of us, civil society, are reacting more robustly to the threats that are in our midst. And at the same time, of course, this is not an anti-Chinese movement, quite the contrary, but it is an anti-CCP movement. Let me just very briefly talk a little bit about Jimmy Lai and Apple Daily. Jimmy and I did a number of live stream events just before they stopped when he was taken to prison. Some things I had said were mentioned in connection with his imprisonment. He's been in prison at the end of this month. It'll be 1,000 days in prison, much of it in solitary confinement, which is generally regarded as torture. I don't think Jimmy is a victim. I think from what I hear, he's, wouldn't say thriving, but he's as free as he's ever been. He's very strong. He understands what his task is. His task is to resist the CCP and Xi Jinping, but he is in solitary confinement. There was a picture of him that AP published a few weeks ago. He looks, very thin. I mean, he looks well, but he's in solitary for 23 hours a day, from what we hear. 50 minutes of exercise. I mean, this is the kind of punishment that's meted out to the most prominent media person in Hong Kong, a man who had the resources to flee but chose to stay. His trial has been delayed repeatedly for quite specious reasons, I think. And we shouldn't just think of Jimmy. I mean, there are 6 other colleagues from Apple Daily who are essentially being held hostage for this trial. They've said that they'll plead guilty, but there's no chance they're going to reoffend, because their alleged offense came through the pages of Apple Daily and other media in the empire, which has now, of course, been shut down. So I think we have to think about the prisoners in Hong Kong, the prison conditions in Hong Kong. Of course, there are hundreds of other people who are being held, many without bail. Something like 38% of Hong Kong's prison population now, our jail population, are people who are being held without bail, awaiting trial. And, they're effectively either being held hostages or locked up without trial. And yet this is a city that says, hello, Hong Kong, come on back. Everything is normal. We're just going to be a global business and financial center as before. And it's our job to make sure that the authorities don't get away with this. Thanks very much.
Thank you. I like you using the word Chrislings. Yeah, like Chris Patton. 好，咁我哋都交個時間咧俾龔小霞。你好 ，Sasha。好的。
I think you're on mute, maybe?
She is on mute. 好啦，依家先着翻阿 Sasha， 頭先聽唔到。
你啱 mute 咗我個麥㗎，
因為你有啲雜音，頭先你喐嚟去。
而家得未啊？
得。
I will quickly speak like for 2.5 minutes in Cantonese, and then I summarize that in English. 咁我好快即係講一下我個背景。我個背景就係可能大家都知啦。我17歲1974年嗰時咧，我就加入咗中國啲地下反抗運動，即係寫嘢啊，咩事大家討論啊。咁啊，最後即係咁啊，梗係即係嗰個叫李一哲集團啦，好多香港人老一輩都知嘅。咁就後尾最終咧，大家都俾人拉咗咁啊，我俾人拉咗 solitary confinement， 一個人韞咗差唔多1年啊，11個月。11個月，咁所以後嚟咧，即係習仲勳去廣東做書記咧，咁我就平咗反，所以咧我係老反革命咧，就對於中共嗰一套咧，我係真係比較熟悉㗎。咁我喺國內都幾十年㗎啦。亦都係一直都係即係自由亞洲電台啊、美國之音啊，我一直做緊就好關注緊中國啲問題。咁香港對於我嚟講，香港真係差唔多第2故鄉嚟嘅。我出國係通過香港出嘅，咁年年都去香港以前，所以我都好即係比較熟悉香港啲情況。咁所以我講我而家睇緊即係港人啊，即係香港喺中國呢兩邊嘅關係咧，即係。我知道好多港人都成日話，哇！中共真係咁樣鎮壓落嚟㗎嘛。但係中共呢個係咩性質？中共統治香港係咩性質？其實大家要諗清楚嘅，係一種殖民主義嚟㗎。即係以前咧，英國去殖民香港，英國殖民香港嗰時咧，佢係一個即係先進嘅工業國家嘅民主國家。佢嚟到香港之後，將英國嘅法制、英國嘅自由帶咗嚟香港，但係民主就未到，所以香港人一向有自由嘅。咁中共而家嚟殖民香港咧，大家要認清楚呢個唔係話好多人啊搞話愛國呢係我自己國家，唔係㗎，佢係一個殖民政權嚟㗎。呢個殖民政權嚟到之後咧，就用殖民地嘅手法嚟統治香港。咩叫殖民地手法？就係將自己國家嗰一套政治制度同埋經濟制度強加到你嘅殖民地身上。所以中共嚟到之後咧，佢好快就係咁要用佢嘅政治制度取代。但因為有呢種所謂50年不變啊，或者以前啲承諾啊，有基本法咧，佢唔變得晒，未變得透徹。因為香港而家，我覺得好有意思。香港而家咁多政治犯啊，咁多呢啲咁呢啲，即係上次8個人俾人通緝啦，俾人通緝。 我見到成個通緝嘅手法，我就覺得好好笑啊！即係好笑咧，唔係話有意思，唔係話即係有即係從政治學嘅角度講，有啲叫做有啲叫做即係喜劇性啊！點解嘅喜劇性咧？佢唔係即係向中共統治嘅方式咧，要拉人又要咩性咧？往往係用打招呼嘅方法啊！就進行鎮壓，咁香港係有一套法庭制度嘅，佢整咗個國安法法庭咧，中共有要隔幾層先可以控制到佢。我想一陣間仲有4分鐘咧，我就再講下呢個中共嘅呢種鎮壓嘅手法，香港人我認為有咩辦法可以對付。咁我而家好快講幾句英文，唔係我哋英文啲朋友啫。I was well, I made myself a political dissident and later a prisoner when I was 17. So somehow I understood that system quite well, I would think. Maybe not the best expert very well. I think, the way China is now ruling Hong Kong, it's a very typical colonialist rule. And a lot of Hong Kong people thought the Brits were colonialists, well, yes. And they, as industrial revolution after the Industrial Revolution, as a democratic rule of law society, and the Brits put its rule of law and freedom on China. It's sort of, you can say they forced in and whatever, but the Chinese, the mainland China now is trying to put its system over China. There's a gap, and the Hong Kongers can use that gap for their own benefit. Anyway, so I will get further in my next round of presentation. Thank you.
唔該晒。Okay, I guess we can pass the mic to Johns regarding the pillar of shame, and also response from Chris Lee, which is beyond imagination. So, Johns, how are you? There's no sound. No sound. Oops.
Mute my mic. His mic is muted.
Johns, because you muted yourself. I cannot control it. Can you speak louder? Cannot hear you. Oops. Johns, can't hear you. Well, he got the control.
The control.
Oh, now.
Now it helped.
Yes.
Could you hear me now? It's okay.
Yes. Please start from the beginning.
I start. I have a lot of experience with the Hong Kong government and the Chinese government. Already when I put it up, my big sculpture, the Pillar of Shame, together with the Alliance people, Albert Ho and Chuk Ben Lee, we put it up there just before the 4th of June and before handover. Then the China trying to block all the transport from Europe, what the pillar is in the container, and they make it threats with M&R. This is a big shipping firm, and say if you take this sculpture to Hong Kong, then we will close everything of your order to China. So already there, the Chinese government trying to block a lot of things into Hong Kong, but we get it out of the harbor and put it in Hong Kong, and for one day we have it in Victoria Park, and there was a lot of noise because we will put it on the Hong Kong Zoo, because the students go up to the stage. We was about 100,000 people, and they go up to the stage and say, "We will take care of that." And then we come to the Hong Kong U, and there was a lot of police, and there was a really big fight with the police on the one side and the Hong Kong student on the other side. And then the British government in Chris Patten go in and say, if there's still a British territorium, and if it's still British territorium, is not allowed to make any block about freedom of expression. So he ordered the police back. And this was the reason the sculpture come into the Hong Kong U. So it was the British government and Chris Patten who helped us to do that. So, and then we make a lot of things and discussion. I have often been in Hong Kong to make a lot of art, and together with the Alliance people and exhibit this sculpture. But in 2008, when we trying to, we should put the pillar orange, because I have made a big action about the color orange into China about the Olympic game. Then they denied me to go in, and I must go out of Hong Kong. I couldn't go in. It was 24 hours, and then they put the flag back. It was the first time they put me out. And there was a lot of noise, but we could do nothing, because it's still the right of Hong Kong to say we don't want to have these people in because he's making noise in Hong Kong. And then the same happened in 2009. And this was even more special, because in 2009, then the Danish government had made an agreement with Hong Kong I should go there, and but Ho has made an agreement with Hong Kong. I should go there and come in. But when I come, they block it and say it's not allowed to go in. And then we saw this is because of the Danish Prime Minister have a meeting with Dalai Lama in Denmark. So this was a kind of revenge against me and against the Danish government. And this was the reason it threw me out. So already there's a really, really close connection from what happened in China, the mainland China, and what happened in Hong Kong. So there's not anything about one country and two system. And in 2013, I go in. I changed my name a little bit. It helped. So then I go in, and then they couldn't throw me out, and then I could repair the pillar. And I have been there since. So this is my story about what happened with me and Hong Kong. I'm quite sure if I come there now, they give me a arrest order. And then they put the pillar of shame down in 2021. They put it down, but already 1 month, 1 year before, we have put the pillar of shame in the another pillar of shame I have in Denmark, in front of the Danish Parliament, to support the democracy movement in the Free Hong Kong movement in Hong Kong. And then the Chinese government sent a letter out to the Danish government and to Copenhagen's authority and asked them to deny the sculpture come up. And of course, the Danish government just give the fuck finger. Said it's not allowed. Everything is allowed to make a demonstration in the European country. And then we just made that. And now we have just here the same in Berlin. We have just put it in Berlin for 2 months ago. In the connection to the 4th of June, we put the big sculpture there and painted. And then the government sending out a big letter out to say this is we are invited. There are enemies because we have invited the people from Taiwan. So I have a lot of experience with this government, but they never attack me. Of course, they attack me personally, but I'm used to that. I'm an artist to making this kind of thing. So they have not like been. You have trying to get your neighbors around you, but they haven't not doing this kind of thing. We have a parliament meeting, a parliament member who has support me, who have a meeting with the Chinese ambassador. He's one of the wolf, and then he talked with him about maybe help us to get the pillar of shame out. And the parliament member was quite surprised, because this ambassador, he know everything what I have done. He's my friend. Yes, he's my friend. And so I'm quite sure they have a really good eye on what we're doing here in Denmark. So, but at the moment, we just do what we should do. We make a lot of noise, and this is what I am from, and this is what the pillar of shame is.
Thank you, John. You will have 3 minutes later.
Yeah.
OK， 咁就我哋交個咪俾阿許智峰。你開咗咪未？係啊，點搞
？Hello everyone. So, Ed, would you like me to do half English and half Cantonese?
任你，中英都得，即係講少少一兩句英文，講翻中文啦。
好。So, thank you for having me, and it's my honor to be with all of you. And I've seen all of you fighting very hard, not only for the freedom of Hong Kong, but yeah, your concerns for Hong Kongers is very encouraging. Thank you. And so I'll switch my channels to Cantonese so that I believe more audiences will understand me better. 大家好啊。我自己對呢一刻嘅研判分析咧，就係中共嘅對香港嘅打壓係繼續升級緊嘅。其實大家都睇到，咁我有幾件事，我覺得係睇到話呢個打壓嘅升級去到另一個境界咧。我諗第一就當然係對我哋嗰8個人嗰個通緝令啦，因為大家都知道通緝令我有好多嘅，但係從來佢冇願意公佈嘅。從來啲記者問佢好多次，本地同埋外媒都問佢好多次，佢就係話我哋有自己嘅政策，我哋又冇進一步資料提供。但係第一次可以咁高調用一個記者會嘅形式，咁又好高調咁樣講，咁亦都講埋嗰個通緝令嘅效果，咁好想像到其實佢個目標都係要喺全世界度製造呢種恐懼。咁隨之而嚟通緝令就係去騷擾家人啦。咁過往冇咁多嘅。如果大家記得騷擾家人呢種做法咧，除咗喺我離開香港，跟住就屋企人太太、父母戶口被凍結之外，大家唔會記得好多話港共出手連坐法搞屋企人啊咁樣。過往唔多，咁但係喺呢個通緝令之後，搞屋企人呢種做法似乎係會常態化。我自己都睇到，咁唔係淨係我哋好高調嘅政治人物啦。咁我哋睇最近港語學嗰個例子，我哋就見到。原來過往曾經係一啲活動嘅組織者，即使你唔係咩政治人物，唔係咩政治明星都好，咁都係會纏繞屋企人、拘捕或者係騷擾屋企人。咁呢個係一個野蠻同埋不文明嘅手法嘅進一個去到另一個境界。咁第三就係我見到612基金呢件事上面啦，過往都係會拉信託人，咁即係全部即係負責人啦。你見到即係書記啊。你見到係譬如何韻詩啊等等，呢啲就係過往嘅做法。但係今次嘅做法，佢再點樣進一步升級咗咧？就係佢拉佢嘅職員，所有職員係啦。咁如果佢要拉職員嘅話，個牽涉面可以好廣，即係我哋全民主派啊，所有社區組織啊嘅職員都可以拉晒。咁佢嘅打擊對象就變得好廣。咁進一步就係話612基金嗰個受助者，我理解都係有被拘捕嘅個案。呢個個案都係從來冇發生嘅，都係好近期嘅事嚟嘅。咁原來即係喺反對陣營裏邊，每一個崗位由上至下，譬如黎智英去到下至一個從來冇人識嘅一個人，但係只要有反對嘅聲音咧，佢都會全面禁制。咁所以我睇到嘅就係中共嘅打壓全方位上升，但係同時我睇到喺國際形勢上面，中共進一步受孤立嘅情況係越嚟越明顯嘅。咁無論喺經濟上，政治上就更加唔使講啦，即係隨之而嚟嘅制裁啊，隨之而嚟嘅好多嘅譬如國際事件啊、俄烏戰爭啊等等。咁但係經濟上嗰個受到國際嘅孤立，亦都會越嚟越大。咁所以我睇到嘅形勢就係整個大環境個對抗性係會再兩極化。咁香港人要有一個準備，就係我哋係離散港人或者香港啦，我哋喺民間咁對住嘅就係全個國家嘅機器同埋資源啦。咁我點樣用我哋嘅優勢，將呢個不平等嘅競賽裏邊，我哋可以再拉翻近個距離？點樣用我哋香港人嘅優勢，可以行多一步，去到從中共嘅一個長期軟實力嘅抗爭？咁呢個我如果有機會，我就可以講到落去多啲。咁但係呢個係我初步我自己睇到對即係成個大形勢嘅分析嚟。
Just want to crack a joke. Does the bounty cover anything outside of Earth, in Mars? I mean, we'd be moving in space, right? You can answer that later. Okay, why don't we have Ben give us the next 4 minutes, Ben?
Thank you very much. Well, it's a pleasure to be alongside all the other speakers, and particularly a privilege to follow my good friend Ted. I wanted to start by apologizing that I can't speak in Cantonese. The only thing I can say in Cantonese, which I think is appropriate, is Guang Phuc Hong Kong, Si Doi Gak Ning, and Ga Yao. But now I'll return to English. I think I wanted to use my second part really just to focus on what we and the international community should be doing to respond to this increased intimidation. Because as Mark very rightly said, when Chinese diplomats in the Manchester consulate last October, almost a year ago, attacked Bob Chan and other Hong Kongers and actually dragged Bob Chan into the grounds of the consulate, I was shocked that the British government was as weak in their response as they were, and they kind of hid behind a so-called police inquiry. But there was no need for a police inquiry. The Consul General himself had gone on television saying, of course, he'd carried out the attack. It was his duty. And so what the government should have done within hours of the incident is expelled those diplomats. And instead, they waited several months, and then the diplomats left of their own accord. Similarly, there's been other incidents in the UK, most recently in Southampton, and there's concern that the person who carried out the attack in Southampton has not been prosecuted. We'll have to wait and see, because there may be some developments in that regard. But nevertheless, I think for too long there has been too much weakness. In response to the 8, of course, Ted is one of them, the 8 who've received arrest warrants and bounties living in 3 countries, the United Kingdom, Canada, and Australia. I think the governments of those countries should be doing everything possible to make sure that the 8 individuals feel safe. So that includes providing proper security advice to all of them. I think coordinating with each other, the 3 governments of the UK, Canada, and Australia, and responding. The UK has not imposed any sanctions, for example, on either Beijing or its quislings, I'll use that word again, in Hong Kong, for dismantling Hong Kong's freedoms. And certainly we should have responded to the arrest warrants and bounties with targeted sanctions. And I'll just end with two final thoughts. The British Foreign Secretary, James Cleverly, has just been in Beijing, and it's been a topic of big debate in the UK. On the one hand, he did raise Hong Kong and human rights issues, and specifically Jimmy Lai, and he said so publicly, and that has to be welcome. But on the other hand, I think his position is still one of weakness, and I would like to see a much more robust, specific approach from him and from his counterparts from other governments. And then finally, I think it's really important that those of us outside Hong Kong use every opportunity possible to remind the world what is happening in Hong Kong. One of the ways we can do that in particular is on key anniversaries. So we've just had the anniversary of the Prince Edward attack on the 31st of August. I spoke at a rally in Piccadilly Circus in London. And those anniversaries are really important because the Chinese Communist Party regime will want to do to the Hong Kong's anniversaries what it's done successfully to June 4th within China, and that is to make people forget what happened. And we mustn't allow them to do that. And the other thing we should all do, those of us outside Hong Kong who have the freedom to do so, is make sure we sing glory to Hong Kong at every opportunity for as long as people in Hong Kong are not able to.
好，咁我哋唔該晒 Ben， 交個咪俾林榮基先生。
你而家嗰個後續4分鐘大概係咩主題嘅？
都係關於中共港共震懾啦，你講咗你啲 publishers 嗰啲經驗啦。咁震懾之後，我哋可以即係做啲乜嘢嘢啦？咁啊 Ben Rogers 頭先講，繼續喺太子站831，即係佢哋會喺英國 Piccadilly Square 嗰度 會有一啲 rally 咁樣。咁究竟世界嘅香港可以做到啲咩去抗衡、去對沖翻呢個震懾？
其實我哋因為我哋係做圖書嘅，咁就好自然嘅，好多嘢發覺係通過討論咧係睇唔到啲乜嘢係比較有前瞻性嘅睇法嘅，反而係有一啲係學者佢一啲作品反而係有一啲高見。咁我個經驗就係正如好似方志所講啊，我哋喺外邊啊，即係要做好準備啊。對而家嗰個環境嘅轉變咁大啊，中國大陸而家係經濟上被制裁等等，對香港嗰個管治加強，咁香港人特別係我哋海外嘅何去何從？咁始終我作為圖書館啊，或者係做圖書嘅一個人係又中意係睇書為主嘅。咁我嘅睇法就係反而係我哋不妨係喺海外生活嘅朋友係仍然係唔好放低書本。咁因為有好多書本其實係個探討上咧比一般人嘅了解更深。我舉一個例子。6歲嘅時候我哋成日跟司徒華出街嚇，咁最初嘅時候，譬如許智峰好細啦嗰時候咁打到李鵬咁李鵬落台，咁後期就係共產黨落台咁嚇。咁呢一樣嘢嗰個口號式嘅遊行式嘅宣泄式嘅一種係抗議，我冇否定係唔好，問題就係缺乏一個探討性嘅一個對中國大陸嘅了解。咁如果係一般朋友都唔係太清楚嘅話咧，係與其咁樣就花少少時間去揾一啲探討性嘅書籍。咁而家我哋睇得到64到而家30幾年，中國係其實係冇進步到嘅大家亦都見到係一路係咁退步。咁個原因喺邊度咧？原因就唔係話淨係共產黨嘅問題喎，因為你打到共產黨另一個政權上台，咁佢嘅行嘅事其實同過去所有嘅獨裁王朝都一樣嘅喎。咁呢一樣嘢，我相信係咪大家會有嗰個疑問咧？係咪值得探討咧？到底中國發生咩事？而家問題就係假定有一日共產黨倒台，另一個政黨上台，佢行嘅事都係一樣。舉一個例子，我哋喺台灣，國民黨過嚟統治台灣，一樣係屠殺台灣嘅人譬如228啦對台灣嘅歷史有了解就一樣屠殺台灣嘅人。然後就係往後就係美麗島事件囚禁一啲知識分子即係民進黨嘅而家啲反對黨嘅人士，即係佢哋做嘅行為，兩個政黨都係一樣。咁你再睇清楚國民黨以前就反共嘅，而家投共咁咩原因呢？或者我哋喺本質上去理解佢哋，其實就國民黨同共產黨其實都係一樣，只係國民黨打敗仗逃離台灣，做嘅行為同共產黨係一樣。而家我哋睇得到喺共產黨嘅眼中，佢係支持國民黨特別係明年嘅總統大選好奇怪以前係反對佢嘅政權，而家佢哋撈埋一齊。咁就因為害怕人民有選舉嘅權利，有人權，有普世價值呢一樣。咁即係話，如果我哋喺海外，除咗係參與一啲活動以外，我係好希望大家啲朋友咧係應該都仲係唔好放低書本，留意一啲係學術上嘅探討。咁我相信對保護或者係將來係推動香港人個凝聚性係好大嘅幫助。呢個係我今日嘅感受。
好，咁或者我交個咪俾 Mark Clifford。Hi, Mark.
Yeah, hi. Thanks very much. Let me pick up, I think, particularly on and elaborate on some of the points that are similar to what Benedict said. You know, we're really privileged that we're outside of Hong Kong, so we need to remind the world about what's happening in Hong Kong. These anniversaries are very important, and we need to really push our governments hard. You know, we have people who live in the UK, US, Australia. These seem to be key nodes that China's interested in, given where the bounties are. And of course, we need to let the people of Hong Kong know that the world is behind them, because I think what we're seeing with Hong Kong is as pivotal, or perhaps a parallel would be with West Berlin, the defense of West Berlin during the Cold War. And I think the world, it's too easy for much of the world to kind of, you know, forget about Hong Kong. There's a lot going on, but this city, there's still 7 million people living there. Many of them are friends, our colleagues, too many in jail. But those who are outside of jail need our support. They need to know they have our support. And the world, especially, as I said, governments and the companies that are doing business there, need to do so with a clear-eyed view of what they're doing. So look at the case of Yen's, the Pillar of Shame. When that was stolen, taken from the University of Hong Kong, excuse me, one of the top law firms in America, Mayer Brown, acted on behalf of the University of Hong Kong, said it was just a normal real estate transaction, which of course is a joke, but Mayer Brown had to back down. We're seeing the American Chamber of Commerce, particularly its head, a former U.S. diplomatic official, acting in service of the propaganda aims of the Hong Kong government. And I think one point of leverage we all have is on foreign companies, banks. Hong Kong Watch, under Ben's leadership, has done a terrific piece on HSBC and other UK.
I think my channel is being attacked.
Keeping MPF funds, keeping pension funds wrongfully from Hong Kong people. Ted, of course, has had experience with HSBC shutting down his account. So I think we need to look for points of pressure on Western firms in particular, and make them understand this is not business as normal. You're dealing with an evil regime. You're dealing with a regime. It's not just Hong Kong, of course. I mean, in Xinjiang, we have the largest internment of civilians since the Nazi period. In Tibet, we've seen the systematic destruction of Tibetan culture, and the fact that just meeting with the Dalai Lama means that the Danish government is kind of put in the penalty box, I think shows you how far we are from the rules-based order that China says that it wants. And China needs to be held to account. And it's we spoke about Quislings before in Hong Kong, but you know, we've got enablers in the form of foreign judges. One of Canada's top jurists, Beverly McLaughlin, sits on the Court of Final Appeal in Hong Kong. Almost a dozen UK judges. There are also Australian judges. So we need to hold the people and the companies who are enabling this evil regime to account. So yes, sanctions. Yes, you know, prohibition of John Lee, who's a sanctioned individual, coming to the U.S. and acting as if it's business as normal. There's a lot we can do, and China's repressive behavior, you know, sadly, gives us a lot of targets. So let's look forward and you know, keep up the fight, because I do think China's at a period of extraordinary. I don't know if weakness is the right word, but we know there are a number of you know, really difficult economic issues and social issues right now. So we're at a very, very fluid moment, and China knows this, and I think we should remember that too and take advantage of it.
Thank you, Mark. Sasha.
Hi. First, I quickly summarize what I'm going to speak, and I switch my language to Cantonese. How about that? So I want to briefly discuss a very key point, which, you know, few people are talking about now. I want to discuss, you know, to understand the repressive means of the Chinese government. I think now the Hong Kong resistance movement is more reactive and the protests and orders, but how that system work, why that happen, in what are the weak links, there are more than one link, the weak links, and how to identify them. So I'm going to switch into Cantonese now, and we can discuss after the show. Anyway， 好，咁我而家講翻廣東話，即係我話咧，即係而家香港咁耐啊，嗰啲抵抗運動啊，大家都係去即係一種反應嚟㗎，即係 react。我嘅意思就係話，但係最重要嘅事情咧，我作為大陸出嚟嘅人，我作為前政治犯咁講啊，我哋大陸嗰啲反抗運動有一個好根本嘅，你要去了解。即係中共喺中國統治香港呢個中間咧，邊個係薄弱環節啊？有邊啲環節呢個成個事情係點？佢點樣推動呢種呢種鎮壓運動？即係中共係一個好野蠻嘅鎮壓政權，咁多年咧，我哋就受到夠晒啦，係咪先？但喺呢個中間咧，中共呢個鎮壓政權，即係呢個成套警察系統啊，成套鎮壓系統，佢有好多薄弱環節嘅。呢個薄弱環節咧，反映喺佢同香港呢個仲係有一定法治呢個起碼有外殼嘅呢個社會中咧，佢係反映咗好多問題嘅。咁第一個咧，我要講下中共係有乜嘢咩？中共呢個鎮壓系統啊，係個唔負責嘅鎮壓系統。要知道，即係咩叫唔負責嘅咧？就係即係上邊出咗一個人冇人嗱。你揾一個人啊，邊個起動呢個事情咧？個個都唔肯負責嘅，一定係上頭指示。上頭指示一定係習近平，冇人去為呢個負責。咁喺呢種唔負責嘅情況下咧，有兩種情況會發生。一種情況咧就喺政治成個其他嘅政治政策啊，越嚟越即係越嚟越靠鎮壓靠嚴酷嗰方面走嗰時咧，嗰啲鎮壓會加碼，一路加碼到下邊上邊，即係以前大陸叫做上邊稍微打個乞嗤咧，下邊就成個颱風噶啦。呢個係一種做法。另外一個做法咧就係上邊咧稍微即係上邊叫吹大風啊咩，下邊啲人唔喐，咁就一周圍政治環境寬鬆啲嗰時咧，大家都唔喐。點解唔喐咧？就係大家唔肯負責。而家冇人肯負責，咁我哋前幾年見到中共咧，就喺兩邊有搖擺嘅呢個，咁清零啊咩嘅時候，突然間就好犀利咁下邊咪即係上邊打個乞嗤或者清零，下邊咪刮颱風咯，日日都要去檢核酸咯。咁白紙運動之後咧，上邊而家話唔係寬鬆啲啊，中國經濟搞到亂晒龍啊，咁下邊咧又開始唔喐噶啦。所以喺香港呢個情況係好有意思，香港係個好有效嘅法治社會。香港嘅法庭、香港嘅警察呢個制度咧，英國式嘅有效制度嚟嘅。咁咧就嗱，你而家見到啦，即係中共立基本法啊，嗰個唔係立中共立嗰個國安法啊，冇考慮到任何後果㗎。中共個國安法係典型都唔知道乜嘢係法律嘅人寫嘅，佢係寫咗一堆客人啲嘢。咁呢啲客人啲嘢到咗香港成個法律，其實香港法庭係唔知點樣對付嘅，咪整個國安法庭咯。整個國安法庭嗰30幾個法官中共嘅傳統做法就係好啦，你哋有一堆人咁你要執行啦。咁我上邊咧，因為嗱你要諗住呢個系統係冇人負責嘅，邊個講咗咩話一定係上級指示，佢自己唔得嘅。佢自己話如果我即係我出咗咩主意，自己啲 initiative 自己做啊，咁佢要負責噶嘛，咁冇人負責，咁上級指示呢個上級指示到咗香港咧就變咗法律。咁但係問題咧，呢個上級指示咧，中共係咁不斷，有時會緊，有時會鬆。而家咧，中共係想鬆嘅，其實你睇各種跡象啊。點解咧？因為佢啲投資冇晒。但係咧喺香港呢種英國式嘅法律制度之內，佢都唔知點送，冇人敢做啊！即係香港法庭咪一路按照國安法就係法律嚟做咯。咁而家冇人知道點樣取消國安法，就要好頭痛一件事情。所以我有時我睇翻北京嘅情況，睇下呢邊啲情況咧，好多漏洞嘅中間。呢啲漏洞咧，即係今日一下講唔晒得咁幾分鐘咯嚇。呢啲漏洞我哋點樣去利用啊？呢個係好重要啊！好啊，今日講到呢度。
好，咁啊，麻煩James, your turn. Make it 3 minutes if possible.
Yeah. I'll follow up a little bit with Mark. What you're saying about the possibility to. When the Mayor Brown, the American firm, trying to attack the people in jail and say this is their sculpture and they will take it, then we attack Mayor Brown with an enormous network. And only 1 week only 1 week we take this enormous, this is one of the biggest lawyer firm in the world, down. So 1 week, then it was down, and then they go from Hong Kong. And I think there's a big possibility to, on the moment we work on the art market. The art market, this is Bonhams, this is Christie's, this is Sotheby, and it's Art Basel. And this is one of the biggest market in the whole Asia. It's $1 billion who going there. So on the moment we try to keep the art scene open and say, you must be the garant for making the free art. You could sell the critical art in your art auction and this kind of thing. And if you don't want it, if you make censorship, then we will attack you, as we do with the Mayor Brown. So I think there's a big possibility to make a huge discussion about the freedom of art and the freedom of expression. Because if Sotheby and if Christie's and if Bonham and if Art Basel say we want to make censorship for the Chinese government, then they're finished in the whole world. And we talk about $billions of dollars. So I think there's a possibility to make a huge discussion about what is the Western world's firm, what is their duty to help the democracy in Hong Kong or to help the freedom of expression. So I think this is the way. On the moment we work on, I work on the exhibition in the European Parliament, and we will invite you, Ted, and other people, all 8 people that are on the list, the $1 million list, and put them in the Parliament to make a discussion. We have already contact with the Parliament and discuss it, and in the same time we will make an exhibition of critical art. And I think, in the moment, I think maybe we should have a choir who could sing the glory of Hong Kong also. And the European Parliament is quite progressive. So this is a good way to do that. Because if you do that in a single country like Denmark, it's too little. And the China attacked them. But if you do that in the European Parliament, then it's much easier to make quite radical discussion. So this is what I'm working on from my workshop on the moment.
Okay, thank you, John. Ted， 最後啦，你 wrap up 啦。喂 ，Ted。
Hello， 你啊，頭先各位嘉賓嘅意見都好寶貴嘅。咁由國際政治啦，講到個人層面啦。咁我覺得我哋可以做嘅嘢好似好有限。咁但係對我嚟講係一啲細水長流嘅功夫嚟嘅，因為我哋講緊香港嘅自由，頭先我講到話我哋係好難以匹配同一個國家機器，但係我哋香港人有嘅優勢可能喺幾方面，我自己睇到。第一就係我哋對住好多嘅打壓，好多嘅滲透，我哋嘅人數唔會比大陸嗰種動員嘅能力強。但係有幾樣嘢係香港人係可以有優勢嘅。第一，譬如我哋可以去我哋嘅專業範疇嘅領域，我哋可以就係除頭先林榮基講到，可能係學者啦。咁但係我哋專業範疇嗰個領域可以做得更多嘅。咁所以點解即係早前我申請，亦都喺度做到考牌做律師，其中一個即係唔係淨係生計，係我希望可以喺各個自由國家嘅專業領域裏可以有啲突破。即係將香港人嘅專才集合埋一齊，加入佢哋專業領域嘅管治架構裏邊，喺各個國家都變成一個大啲嘅持份者，彰顯到我哋港人嗰種價值同埋存在係對嗰個國家嘅貢獻嘅。咁呢個係其中一個方法，我哋可以點樣壯大我哋嘅實力啊？係一種軟實力嚟嘅，即係唔係再講緊即係禮節式嘅去喺街頭示威嗰隻都要做嘅。頭先阿 Ben Roger 講到，我哋要 keep 住要做，係一個道德嘅感召嚟。咁但係喺唔同領域要去實踐。第二嘅就係可能就係我哋嘅公民社會喺海外點樣建立。咁公民社會建立唔容易啦，對住國安法喐啲就拉，又要鎖好多人嘅資產，又要翻香港啦。咁但係如果共產黨針對住我哋嘅係文化同埋語言，可能呢兩個都係一個好大嘅範疇。呢方面我覺得香港人我哋係有能力要反抗嘅。我哋要譬如我喺澳洲咁樣，普遍社會覺得接受咗學中文就一定學共產黨嗰隻簡體字， 講嗰隻共產黨嗰隻嘅語言咁。我話俾你聽唔係嘅，我哋香港人又係香港人係華人嘅一部分，我哋有自己嘅文化，我哋有自己嘅語言。中文唔係一定係共產黨嗰套嘅政治宣傳。咁我見到好多香港人喺度做語文學校啦，開始推廣廣東話啦，甚至喺體育領域推廣足球隊啦，即係將香港人嘅價值文化同精神去延續。其實我哋有香港人係做呢啲事係叻嘅，即係組織公民社會，點樣喺唔同我哋自己身處嘅國家可以嘅公共領域裏邊佔一席位，喺公民社會裏邊去佔一席位。咁我覺得呢個都重要嘅。咁第三就可能即係黃色經濟圈啦。咁雖然越搞就越難㗎啦，因為唔多唔少都諗到香港。咁佢喺香港一拉人就難。咁但係我哋喺經濟上點樣可以有大家可以信賴嘅產業鏈？點樣可以喺經濟上可以同佢比較相匹配？起碼我哋可以支持到我哋自己同老人嘅生計，可以有多啲嘅支援等等。咁我覺得呢啲都係一啲長線，即係我哋個人層可以做嘅事，去到抗衡咯。咁喺呢幾樣做完之後，係一種軟實力嚟。咁所以我形容對抗呢種極權、呢種震懾係一種用軟實力嚟對抗。呢個係細水長流，每個香港人自己要有一種自覺擔起嘅功夫咯。咁就變得冇咁係每次講緊組織咩一次行動示威，乜嘢嘅一次嘅請願咁。譬如我自己即係作為一個已經冇嘢可以損失嘅人啦，即係已經被通緝啦。我會將自己製造成為一種矛盾咯。咁譬如我向澳洲嘅法庭申請成為律師，已經係製造緊即係澳洲同中國之間嗰種矛盾。即係咁，我係一個通緝犯啦，一個法庭人員啦。咁可能我去加入一個專業團體或者去其他亞聯盟嘅國家，都申請成為律師資格等等，都係製造緊呢啲張力同埋矛盾喺度。要呢度嘅公民社會同埋呢度嘅專業領域，去到直接面對我哋一個申請，你認唔認為我係一個罪犯咧？我要喺呢個文明世界裏邊得到最大嘅廣泛嘅認同。咁呢啲我覺得唔係淨係我一個人可以做，即係好多即係香港人，就算被打擊過有案底啊等等，出到嚟都可以做。咁喺呢啲喺個人層面上面，一微細一少少嘅行動，對香港嚟講可以有好大嘅影響力。呢個我好相信嘅。
唔該晒 Ted。咁亦都好，今日咧多謝晒嘅所有嘅來賓講關於呢一個中共港共震懾，香港加速沉淪。Thank you so much for all the guests who participate in today's forum. The topic with intimidation tactics, Hong Kong sinks further. Now, I just want to add quickly about what's happening this afternoon, New York, Toronto time, 2 p.m. It's 2 to 4, and in the first hour or maybe first 45 minutes, Father Franco Mella, who is based in Hong Kong but now overseas, together with Mark Clifford and myself, we will be sharing about, talking about the political and also the prison situation in Hong Kong. Our friends, the ticker symbol underneath, Jimmy Lai, Joshua, and so many others that some of you have known or have not known. It is in a church setting, so it's not as political, so to speak. And then there are two other people, Leanne Lee and also Joy Look, will be sharing on site at the Bayview Glen Alliance Church. So the global beaming part will be probably 45 minutes. So Mark can get back to his normalcy, so to speak, same as Father Franco Mella. And then Father Richard, who is with the Chinese Orthodox Church, will be wrapping up through a video at the end. So that would be the format for this late afternoon. And thank you so much, everyone.